So I'm here today with Kelsey Kuntz, who is an experienced navigator at Stringtown. Do I have that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Well, thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about what you do at Stringtown.
Okay, so I am, like you said, the experienced navigator. So I do a lot of the day-to-day tasks, but I also help a lot with programming and that sort of thing. Since we are a smaller neighborhood location, we have a smaller staff. So you really are able to do a lot more, everything that's involved in working in a library as far as programming, but also doing tech help, reference questions, and also even doing like the circulation, checking in and checking out materials. So I am super excited that I get to do kind of everything in working at, a smaller branch.
So you get to be a jack of all trades.
Exactly. A Jane of all trades.
There you go. There you go. Jackie,
Jill, maybe
whatever,
that's it.
I would do it.
Yeah, whatever.
All right. So we're going to get into the books that we've chosen. As we mentioned in the intro, we are just talking about new things that are being added to the collection. And these are just so simply the titles that jumped out at us that we thought we would be interested in reading. So I'm going to start off with mine, Alias Emma by Ava Glass. Now, this would be a really good read for someone who's into the spy thrillers.
Ooh.
So Emma has a first ever assignment to go into Russia and rescue an innocent man who is being targeted by an assassination team.
Wow.
And by the Russian government. And so there's always these backstories, and there's more to the story. She has to, before sunrise, deliver this person to MI6. And it comes down to, as I read the information, it sounds very much like Mission Impossible style type
exactly
of
what I thought
book. Maybe a little James Bond, but I would say more Mission Impossible. So for some reason, I just recently rewatched the original Mission Impossible.
Really?
I mean, when I say original, I don't mean the original TV show, but that first movie that was released in the series. And I guess it got me thinking Mission Impossible type of plots and ideas. So that one really just kind of stood out to me.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that sounds fun.
So what's first on your list?
So first on my list is Delphine and the Dark Thread by Alyssa Moon, which is actually a sequel to Delphine and the Silver Needle. So I haven't read the first one, but seeing it on our list of upcoming titles really made me want to. So I've recently been reading the Wing Feather Saga by Andrew Peterson, so both of them are middle grade fantasy series. And I've discovered, again, my love for children's fantasy, I guess. I hadn't read it in a while. But so this title centers on Delphine, who is a young orphan dressmaker mouse living in the walls of Cinderella's chateau, who stumbles upon an enormous secret. And so it's about her unraveling that secret, and it becomes like this epic magical quest, and it features adorable mice in tiny dresses and cloaks. And then the sequel even has like this big shaggy cat on the cover. So I was immediately drawn to it. So it's one series that the sequel's coming out, but I am really excited to now read the first one as well.
So Cinderella meets A Mouse's Tale.
Yes. There you go.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
As far as children's literature, as far as I'm concerned, and I say this to patrons all the time, a good book is a good book.
Exactly. And so
someone somewhere pigeonholed the story.
Yeah.
And sometimes appropriately, I get why they make those choices. But when it all comes down to it, a great story is worth reading, no matter what your age.
Yeah. And there are a lot of titles out there that, it may not use some of the language that the adult fantasy titles. It might not be high fantasy, but it's still a good story, and it has those themes that you can still relate to. And I've discovered, as I get older, I'm I still am just a child at heart. I'm proud of it. So I'm fine. Yes.
I just recently spoke to a patron, and they were looking for something, and I don't know what triggered this interest, but they were like, so is Anne of Green Gables a kid's book? And I'm like, it is just a good book.
Yes.
And it was, of course, in the children's department, but I snagged that right away, and I said, it is an excellent book and well worth reading no matter what your age.
Just because it's appropriate for children doesn't mean that it is only for children.
Exactly.
So true.
And there I have some picture books that are absolute favorites of mine that I would read for my own edification, as you might say.
Oh my gosh. I love picture books. So shameless. Love them.
Shameless it should be.
Yes.
All right. So the next book that I picked from our incoming list of items is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. Now, this I'm going to kind of talk about the description, but it made me think of a favorite book that I've read multiple times. And I think that was really what hooked me. Daisy's family is coming together for the first time in many years. They don't really get on well, but they come together for their Nana's 80th birthday. And she lives in an old Gothic kind of crumbling house on an island. And so once you get on that island, when the tide is in, you're cut off for 8 hours.
Oh.
There's no getting off the island until the tide goes out or comes in or whichever direction it is.
Wow.
And so they're all there. They've all kind of come in with secrets. And then at midnight on the first night, their Nana is found dead.
Oh, no.
Yes. And then one by one, members of the family are being killed.
Oh, my gosh.
And so it's like, I love a good murder mystery. Anybody who's listened to me on this podcast will know that by now.
Yeah.
But so this has got, and I love Gothic fiction as well. So it's got a lot of that spooky. But the thing that really hooked me is as the description of being on this island and cut off from land and people dying one by one, it immediately brings to mind Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None.
Yes.
Which is an absolute favorite of mine.
Right.
And anytime someone comes in going, I'd like to read Agatha Christie, that's almost always the first one I like to recommend.
Nice.
So this really has got my interest, and I'll probably be putting it on hold really soon.
Yeah, that does sound really good. Just in time for spooky season, as they say.
That's what I was thinking. It's like it's barely out of July, but I'm already looking
I'm
so forward
ready.
to that time of year.
Yes,
It's my
definitely.
favorite time.
Same. Well, my second pick is kind of in the same vein. So it's Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by, I'm going to attempt to say this correctly, Sangu Mandana. So it does center on witches, but at the same time, it is kind of a more comforting and cozy story, which is really what I prefer my spooky stories to be. So it is set in Britain and features a witch named Micah who was orphaned as a child. But in this world, the witches have to hide their magic and their powers and even like stay away from each other to avoid drawing attention. But then one day she starts receiving messages begging her to come to a remote, I guess it's a house. It's called Nowhere House. Could be an island. I don't really know. To teach 3 young witches how to control their powers. And so she goes against her better judgment and goes. But then she, of course, gets, wrapped up in the lives of the cast of lovable characters, including the handsome but prickly librarian Jamye. So,
well, what do you know?
Yeah, yes. It's kind of, fits the same, yeah. But he's leery of Micah, of course, for the sake of, protecting the children. So it's like, instantly love him. So then Micah ends up having to protect kind of this found family that she has from some danger or threat that we don't know, but that eventually comes knocking. So that is one that I'm really looking forward to potentially reading.
I love a good character-driven story.
Yes, me too.
I mean,
same.
I love atmospheric. I absolutely do. But a book can absolutely be saved, even if it's a little weak in other areas, by good soldiers.
Yes, and I think that's part of why I really have always preferred reading like young adult fantasy or even other books, is they really, at least from what I have read, they seem to be more character driven, and that is what I really love. And so I think that's what this one's going to be.
I interviewed a few weeks ago Lisa Holstein, who received the Raven Award, and we were going through and talking about what is the thing that hooks a book for you, and she says character driven all the way. That is the thing, and of course that makes the most sense. But I like more than that. But that is kind of a make it or break it kind of.
Yes,
that is a kind of a make it or break it sort of essential element.
Definitely. I definitely relate to that.
So the next book I've chosen is called The Thread Collectors, and it's by 2 authors, Shauna J. Edwards and Allison Richmond. And this story is loosely based on their own personal family histories. So probably, the tales that were passed down to their families that they kind of latched onto and wove into a tale of their own. Yeah. So there's 2 key characters in this book. It's set in the Civil War, and what the first character, Stella, is a young black woman, and she lives in Louisiana, in New Orleans. A task that she is doing secretly is intricately embroidering secret maps onto repurposed cloth to hand to black men who are trying to escape north.
Wow.
Many to join the Union Army, but the person that she is working with would absolutely kill her if he found out that she was doing this. So it's something she has to keep very secret. And of course, her main task is a seamstress. So this flows naturally with her skill set. Yeah. She also has to keep quiet the love that she has for this black musician that works in that area. The other character, her name is Lily, and she is a Jewish woman living in New York City. And her husband is stationed in Louisiana as a part of the Union Army. And so while she's at home and waiting for her husband and waiting for word to hear from him, she's rolling bandages, and her sewing circle are making quilts that they're sending to soldiers so that they can have them on the battlefield as they're, camping. But then she's not heard from him in months. And she begins to, of course, be really, really concerned. And so she decides to make a very dangerous journey down south to try to get word of her husband.
Yeah.
And so while she's down in Louisiana, she and Stella cross paths, and they find that even little threads can have a major impact. That's how it was described. So I love a good historical fiction.
Yeah.
I, as a person who loves fiber arts, that really kind of piques my interest. Yep. And so I'm really excited to see that story play out.
Yeah, you have made me want to read that for sure. Oh man, sounds so good. Okay, so my next title is Secrets of Ashmore Castle by Cynthia Herod Eagles. And so it claims to be perfect for fans of Downton Abbey. So right off the bat, you have my interest. I love Downton Abbey. But so this title is the first in a new series. So the main character is Giles, who inherits his father's title and castle following an accident, but also his financial woes, which is kind of very similar to Downton Abbey. So then enter Kitty Bayfield, who's a shy but rich daughter of a baronet, and her penniless friend Nina. But then Nina, of course, ends up being the one capturing his heart, but Kitty has the money, so he basically has to decide if he's going to follow his heart or if he's going to be a gold digger of sorts, and then be able to save, what he's inherited from his father. So it says it has romance and drama, but also intriguing secrets. So I'm looking forward to reading that one and maybe having my next Downton Abbey fix, because that is something I'm always on the hunt for.
So that is your go-to show.
Yes, that is one. And I have actually hooked a patron at Stringtown onto Downton Abbey, and she is always also searching for her next Downton Abbey type series. And I've given her everything we have, I think, but maybe I can get her to read this title.
Just in the same vein, I love period pieces. Yeah. And my go-to is Call the Midwife.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely love that one, and I will rewatch the series from time to time because, and especially, right before the new series comes out.
Yeah.
I'll be like, okay, let's catch up. Where were we? And because some of the characters come and go, and some of the characters that were my absolute favorite are no longer part of the series, and so I like just going back and getting to meet them again, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. It's always nice after you haven't watched it for a while. You kind of give yourself time to forget almost, and then you feel that way a little bit at least again.
Yes, so, exactly. Yeah. That's one of those that has staying power. There's TV shows that I've enjoyed them while they were there, and then I was like, okay, I'm good. But there's just those few movies or TV series or even books that they have staying power. And you can revisit them and go, yep, I still really like this.
Those are the best. My favorite for sure.
All right. So the last one that I'm going to mention on my list, and I like to always include something nonfiction if I can. 100% of the time I don't, but this time I am going to talk about Dangerous Rhythms, Jazz and the Underworld by T.J. English. And it's a narrative of the time of the jazz musicians, Duke Ellington and all of those just really well-known people that everybody knows today. People who aren't into jazz will recognize these names.
Yeah.
But at the time that many of them were up and playing was when most of the speakeasies, as they said, or the jazz clubs were mob run. And so it's this intersection of this jazz musicianship that was rising, but also working for these mob run clubs. And there was different types of opinions about that. Some felt like they had more freedom to express themselves musically in a non-traditional way because jazz was the rock and roll of its day. What is that music?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, what is that? And so there was that liberty in one sense, but being mob run, not liberty in the genuine sense.
Yeah.
And so some musicians felt that by working for these clubs, they actually had more protection because of the mob kind of making sure they protected their own, and others felt like they weren't as safe. And so, and as with any issue of its time, there's going to be people on both sides of that fence. I feel like that sounds like a really compelling story.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not much of a jazz listener, but I love the history of how things developed and the culture that built around it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's Dangerous Rhythms, Jazz in the Underworld by T.J. English.
Oh, nice. Sounds really interesting.
So before we wrap up this episode, anything that you're currently reading that you want to talk about?
I mentioned earlier reading the Wing Feather Saga. I'm in the second book of that. It's a middle grade fantasy series, and we do have it in our system.
Okay.
It's really good. I would say there are some themes of maybe character suffering that some parents might not be comfortable yet with their children reading through, so it may be a little bit of an older middle grade type series. But it's a great story. It's got a lot of great themes and kind of life lessons woven in. Strong family message. So yeah, that's what I'm reading.
It's been on my to-read list for so long, I finally read all the way through Where the Crawdad Sings.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, of course, good timing since the movie's in the theater. I actually haven't decided if I'm going to go to the theater and watch it. I may just wait until the DVD comes to the system.
Yeah.
And then watch that. But I really did like it. It was something on my radar for a long time. And many, many people who, when they heard that I hadn't read it yet, were just shocked and amazed that I hadn't read this amazing book. And it was good. I really did enjoy it. And it had there was a lot of sorrow, but there was also this strength and resilience. And I really loved the way it played out. And I kind of had these two alternate endings, which I'm not going to give away, of course.
Yeah.
And so it was like, this ending or is it this ending? And it was just really, really well written and well done.
Yeah, good.
And I'm in the middle of Verity by Colleen Hoover.
Oh my gosh, all of those books have been blown up.
Those have been. And actually, because I have a book club at McCullough, the One More Chapter book club, for those of us who keep going, I'm going to go to bed now. No, wait, one more chapter.
Yes.
And so that is a book that has just been super popular.
Yes.
And everybody who reads it, their minds are just,
really.
And so I'm like, okay, this just needs to be the book we read. And I'm probably 75% done. And I literally got to this moment where I'm like, okay, I need to take a break.
Oh my gosh.
This is very intense.
Oh,
and
geez.
I love the story, and I'm going to have to find out how it ends. But I will say, for those of our more sensitive readers, may not be for them, because it definitely deals with very intense and dark themes.
Okay.
But it's definitely a story I have to see how it ends.
Yes. Those are the best, though.
This would absolutely make a good movie.
Really? I bet, I feel like some of her titles will for sure end up becoming movies just because of how they have really just surged like insanely in popularity.
Well, Verity came out in October of last year, and I was aware at the time of how popular it was, but as most books, they're very, very popular when they first come out, give them a few months, and they're still popular, but just not that intensity as when they're first released. That has not been the case with this title.
No, and it's like everybody, like the holds list for all of her titles. It's like people read one of hers and then they're like, okay, I have to read all of the others.
I think that's exactly right. Whenever anybody reads any of her titles, they just want to read them all.
Yeah, which is crazy but great. I mean, it's fun to see.
So that's what's been on my reading list, but also what I want to read. I hope that some of our listeners will comment about books they have in mind to read, or books that have been recently added to our collection that really piqued their interest, or even favorites from their past that just really resonated with them. I hope you'll write in, comment, follow, subscribe, and all those good things. Thanks for joining, Kelsey.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was fun.